Welcome to Athlete Complete, where we host raw and open conversations about the details that impact performance from current and former professional athletes for parents, players, coaches, and fans.
Instructor.
I know. I've heard.
Wow, good for you.
What's his name?
Sean.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Fabulous. What a great place to start. Here we go. Patrick Wisdom in the house, everybody. Patrick, we've got a tradition here, which is to explain your nicknames, starting in youth sports up till now. We've already heard one of them, which is Wiz. What other ridiculous nicknames you got?
So yeah, I guess I'll start the youth. A lot of my friends called me Patty when I was a kid. It was all through high school. I don't know where it came from. It just started happening. But in Ireland, people with Patrick are called Patty. I have an uncle named Patty, so it wasn't all the unusual. But yeah, so that was one. But no one really calls me that anymore. There was a point in time where I was called Sunshine because I had some long blonde hair, but that was just for a hot minute. And then as I got into pro ball in college, college and pro ball, it was mainly Wiz and Wizzy, and then P Wizzy came along, and I would say that's probably the most popular, Wiz and P Wizzy.
Right.
Wizzy.
Yeah, that's the
doctor.
That's the Instagram handle, right? Is P Wizzy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think it was my wife's brother. He said like P Wizzy, that should be your Instagram handle. I was like, oh, all right, and then so I just threw it on there, and it's been there way ever since.
It works.
Yeah.
Have there been any inappropriate plays on your name there with P Wizzy? I could make a couple links to turn that dark pretty quick.
Yeah, you're good at that, Ben. Not really. No, I mean like the Wiz and going to the bathroom kind of. I get that a couple times, like, oh, Wiz, you gonna take a Wiz? Wiz gonna take a Wiz? But yeah, no, it just kind of flows. Hey, pun intended.
Yeah, it flows.
Well done.
Oh, he's
Nice.
off to a good start. Good start.
Good start. Beautiful.
Sean, what topics you got for us today?
I got some topics here. Let me lay these out. So, something that's kind of emerged over the time of recording these is everybody's unique path to professional sports. Were your parents super involved? Were they, not involved? Were you obsessive at 10? Were you a multi-sport athlete who chose baseball eventually? And so that's one topic that I'd like to dig into.
Okay.
Number two is a question that I really enjoy. That I've seen other places. What would your profession be if you weren't a professional baseball player? Who was it? Was it Blake Bortles that said, I'll be work at construction, ripping cigs?
Yeah.
That was so
What an
good.
epic answer.
Yeah.
Something where Freddie Freeman said he was going to be I want to be a CPA. You guys see that one?
No.
Nobody wants to be a CPA.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it's like his family business. Like his dad and uncle owned a accounting firm or something like that. So like he grew up wanting to join that firm, but obviously not anymore.
He's doing okay.
Yeah, my wife's a CPA. Nobody wants that.
I mean, like 10 months of the year, it's okay, isn't it?
We'll bring her on. You can talk to her about it.
Ichiro said that he wanted to be a fashion designer, which I thought was pretty interesting. I remember seeing that years ago.
Yeah.
That dude had some outfits, man. Like
I could see
early in
that.
my career, he was in Seattle and like he had some fits. Yeah. He was big into fashion.
It's like an icon that I could see
Yeah.
that for sure.
That was during the like Union Bay chunk. Well, not for professional athletes, but like the chunky sweater era, right?
He had like the capri pants. Like he was big on capri pants and like, the sunglasses were very fashionable and stuff like that. Yeah, it was planned for sure.
Dude, that's making its way back though. Like with the soccer players too. Like super basically the 90s are back in.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is in baseball, but these guys, especially the foreign guys, they show up and just like, it looks like my high school graduation photos. It's wild.
Yeah, I would say the 90s for sure, coming back. The early 2000s, like the bagginess,
Yeah.
like that's all making a way back.
Are long shorts in right now? So I'm in Maui, and like seen a lot of people walk around with like the long shorts that go down to like your like past your knee, like way past your knee, kind of
That's
baggy.
always been European, dude.
Okay, maybe it's a European
Any
thing.
beach community is going to have the European. Patrick, I don't know you. How'd you get your start?
In what?
Baseball.
Oh, like as a kid? Yeah, I started playing t-ball for the local little league, and then I moved over to Pony, different like organization. But yeah, I played that and played basketball growing up too, and football. But then baseball was kind of my better sport, I should say, and just kind of kept rolling with it. But yeah, I played rec league a lot, travel ball a little bit, and then as I got to like 10 through like 12, that's when I really started playing a lot of travel ball. Ended up getting burnt out when I was like 11, 12. So I didn't play for like a whole year, but
How'd you know at 11, 12 you were already burnt out?
I just wasn't having fun. Didn't want to go to practice. Didn't want to go to the games. Wanted to, go to my friends' birthday parties. Wanted to do other things. I had a motorcycle at the time. I wanted to ride motorcycles. I wanted to ride my bike. I wanted to like be a kid because I see my friends who weren't in baseball like doing other things, going like to Disneyland or going on trips and family vacations. Yeah, but I think the biggest thing is I just wasn't having fun playing, going to practice. It was such a drag, and I think my parents kind of caught on to that.
I went to one t-ball practice at 5 and cried the whole time, and I was out. This is not for me, dude. I've got serious ADD. I can't just stand there.
Yeah, I think I cried because like the kids in t-ball couldn't catch the ball I was throwing, or so I had to like do everything. I remember my mom saying that I was super frustrated with that. But
what brought you back?
I think the time away honestly was good, and I was able to kind of fill that cup, if you will, of doing other things, being a kid. And then, as time passed, I was getting calls from, my friends and, the coaches saying like, hey, like we have a tournament this weekend. You want to come play? I'm like, nah. And then like it started like eventually like, lighting that fire in my belly again. Like, all right, yeah, like I want to go play. I want to go up here and play with these guys and let's get back into it. So just slowly started playing like tournaments here and there with different teams, and they ended up being like my friends too. So it was nice to go out there and play with your friends.
Did you find that when you came back to it, it was more of like a balance, like you maybe weren't playing as much as you were before, but that helped helped you find some balance of like still being a kid, but then saying, oh yeah, I'll play in that tournament and that tournament instead of like doing it all. Did that like help a little bit? Do you remember?
Yeah, I would say that for sure. It also brought back like the joy of playing again and the fun aspect of the game, because it is a game. But yeah, I think just spending some time away was able to like understand what that balance was, and maybe at the time and as a kid not really throwing that word on it, like understanding what balance was. It was like, oh, I can still be a kid, and I don't have to play every single tournament every single weekend. It's finding that balance. And I think that was relayed from my parents to the coaches, like, hey, this isn't like a for sure every weekend thing. Like he's gonna play here, and then let you know when he's available again. So kudos to my parents for recognizing that too.
That's so huge, man.
I'd love for parents, whoever are listening to this thing, to hear what he just said, because you do have options.
Yeah.
There's so many parents I come across who are like, we're stuck. We have to do this. We have to do that. It's like, no, this is your child. You paid money. You have a choice. You don't have to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And you can take a breather. I mean, the kids are not the kids, right?
Yeah. And I think that gets lost, when it's, the parents are in it for themselves in the party or the camaraderie of the weekend, and you're traveling. It's and you see like the parents getting all into it about who's winning, who's losing, the stats, and it's like, there's so much more at stake than just that. I don't even know my win-loss record or my stats when I was 12. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's about having fun and creating those memories about it being fun and exciting.
And clearly, like, you didn't fall behind on like a skill or whatever level. Like you were still able to compete and look at where you are now. Like it still led to you being a Major League Baseball player, which is super cool.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I mean, yeah, not to toot my own horn, but I was pretty good at that age where yeah, just like, I guess because you put so much time and effort into it and practice as a kid to develop those skills. And then I felt like it wasn't such a task to come back as it would be now. Like I stopped throwing for like a month. I'm like, oh man, I got to get this thing going again.
Age, man.
That's just age.
The ultimate.
Do you think that experience away though has helped shape your relationship with how you go about your business now? Being able to take a step away and kind of refresh and have different interests and things like that.
Yeah. I think so. I guess as I reflect on it, you're 100% right. It's, I think that started at an early age, knowing that you can still do your passion and you can still be good at something, while taking some time away, while balancing, as James said, like other things in life. And I think that is part of the recipe to success, is having something other than, having different hobbies and passions, to balance yourself out, to mentally get away from something, and then when you come back, it's fresh, it's new, it's joyful. So yeah, for sure, I would say that.
I'm reminded of what I heard as a kid growing up, and it would be interesting. We're really narrowing in on this time away that you took, which is like you made a commitment. You made a commitment to yourself. You made a commitment to your teammates. Maybe that just applies to like quitting in season versus not starting in a new season. But I was always told, and I always thought that was a strong value to like make the commitment and show up and continue. So now I'm kind of curious into the weeds a little bit. Did you quit mid-season, or did you just like take a year off when signups were happening again?
No, I just stopped right after the season, and then when signups came, just didn't sign up. And like I said, I gotta give credit to my parents for saying like, hey, do you want to take it like this year off, and like we can do other things. And it was nice that I think they saw that in me, and knowing that I wasn't just gonna hang up my cleats and throw in the towel. It was like almost like a pause. Hey, let's pause. Let's take like this year off, and then we can get back into it. And I think that was also encouraging too, and comforting, knowing like, okay, my time with baseball is not done. It's just like, we're just pausing to refresh.
That's really cool. I think so many people would see that as a threat to falling behind this day and age. Or it's like, no, we cannot stop doing this. We have to do these extra trainings just to try to keep up with someone over there. I mean, and so there's an inherent fear surrounding this whole thing. If we stop, we're going to be left behind. There goes college. There goes this. There goes that. And it's very dramatic, when in reality, that pause away is what's going to give you juice to have more motivational endurance long term.
Yeah.
I mean, the specialization in kids is focusing so early. There's a reason they burn out. It's because they can't handle it, can't tolerate it. It's like anybody needs a break from anything, unless you're like on the edge, like Elon Musk, and it's partially psychotic. Like, and it really is on the edge for guys like that. But for the status quo, you need to take a breather. You need to refresh and reappraise and then go forward.
Well, I also think there's something just like this, whatever you want to call it, like God-given talent. And some people can take a break and step back in and just be a freak athlete, right? And be able to perform on a daily basis. But there are people who have dreams and aspirations, and they know that if they do take a break, they might lose a step. I mean, we've all coached enough players, as some of us have coached enough players to know that if someone takes a break and comes back, like it's just not there. And it takes a while to get back into it. And so I see both sides of it, but I think that there are, I don't know, the more I think about it, there's athletes that are kind of just destined to take that next step. And fortunately for Patrick, obviously it worked out. Would you consider yourself Inland Empire at all?
Yeah, the IE 951.
So I knew, that's why you're dirt biking everywhere, dude. It's in your blood too.
Yeah, wasn't too crazy with it, but I love to ride out there. But I think to your point too about like working hard and not falling behind. That saying, keep your nose to the grindstone, and you got to outwork everybody. And there's 1,000 other kids working when you're not, and all those sayings. I think it's hard to kind of realize that taking a pause or some time away can almost propel you when you come back, because you're going to be fresh. You're going to be like more mentally apt and engaged, and, absorbing things, absorbing lessons, or, new skills. And especially if you take a pause away from one sport and you go play another sport, I mean, that's a whole nother topic. You're probably going to be better when you come back to the original sport. But also too, I think to your point, I feel like now if I was to take like a year off, I would definitely have some steps that I need to, get back. But as a kid, I feel like that distance is not as great as we think it will be. And like you said, I think we've enough kids where maybe that distance is greater, but some kids that distance is not that great. They can take a year off and they come back and it's like, they just need a little bit of time to catch back up, get that rust shaken off, if you will, and boom, they're back at it. So I just feel like I should highlight that. I think I was at the point where I was like I could benefit from the year off without losing so many steps.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the sentiment, Brad, and I totally understand where you're going and where you're coming from with that. But there's the idea of callousing to what you're doing versus blistering, and the bending and not breaking kind of thing. You're getting to a point where you're just stretching the seams so far that it's just it's not tolerable. Now, Patrick is a professional baseball player. He's got refinements. That's where he's at. That's his level. Kids don't have that level of refinement yet. They're still in gross motor phases. They're still trying to pick up basics. Multiple sports is the key to developing that, and it will help that sport they ultimately specialize in at some point when the time's appropriate. But the idea that they can't get it back or they're going to fall behind is just, on paper, I understand it. Yeah. But it's just not the way it really is. I mean, it doesn't have to be a long-term break either. It's just, we got to positively affect the dosage of what we're doing, in my opinion.
No, I completely agree. Just kind of was playing devil's advocate. I mean, my love growing up was skateboarding. Like, I didn't have soccer players in my room. It was decked out in all skateboarders. I just watched skateboarding videos. Like, I had my ramp. I had my box in my front yard. That's what me and my friends did in all of our free time. Soccer was just like an hour out of the day, 3 days a week, right? At that time in the 90s. So, yeah, I completely get it. And that, I think, helped my soccer career, right? Balance, just the way that the brain works in solving puzzles, footwork especially.
Bravery.
Sure. Yeah. Bravery, resilience, right? You fucking get knocked down. You have to get back up. There's no choice. You got to find your way home. Right? Yeah. I see both. Yeah. I definitely see that side and appreciate it.
Because I feel like you do have those like two people on your shoulder, if you will. Like one, like, hey, let's take a break. You're good. You put in the work. Or there's that other guy like, hey, there's other people out working you right now. Like you're not doing anything. You should be throwing. You should be hitting. You should be, in the mirror doing some dry drills, whatever it is, like constantly working. And then you can go down a rabbit hole with that. But I feel like, to your point, Brad, like it's like, how can you listen to both of them, but like turning off your ears to one or the other? It's hard.
I feel like taking a short break is good. Is enough anyway. I remember I was playing when I was like 13 or something like that, and my arm was a little bit sore. And we just told my coach, I was like, hey, James is going to take 2 weeks off. He's going to go on family vacation. We went to our cabin, and I took 2 weeks off of baseball. It's like swimming in the ocean, being a kid, and it was awesome. And then I came back and I was feeling better and I was ready to go again. I felt like reinvigorated. And it's not like, I don't even think that kids need to take like, a year off, but it's okay to take a break and like go on vacation. I feel like these kids these days are getting into this thing where it's like, oh, I have to do every tournament. I'm playing every weekend, every day, all year long. And it's like, you don't get to take those little vacations or breaks and kind of, find that balance per se. So maybe it's not taking a year. It's taking 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there to go do stuff that you want to do. And it's okay to go to the birthday party and miss a game. I just think the whole idea around it, how serious we talk about how kids are being treated like pros. They're not pros, they're kids. Treat them like kids. And I think it's important to have all those other experiences as a kid, vacations and things with your friends. So I think that's big.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we understand that, but like sometimes that gets lost in translation with the coaches. Because I remember playing, you know, and having coaches, and it's like, okay, well, if you leave, like you can't play on this team anymore. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like I'm paying, like my parents are paying to play here, you know, or whatever it is. So I feel like sometimes coaches have a say in that too, which stinks. You know, that's not very fun. And like to your point, this kids are kids; they're not pros.
Yeah, I think that like coaches' egos get in the way of like, you know, we have to win. We got to win this tournament, blah, blah, blah. When really, like, bro, it doesn't matter. He's a 12-year-old playing ball. Like, it doesn't matter if you win, dude. Like, it's not going to make you look cool that your team won the championship. You know, this is about developing these kids, making sure they're having fun. But I think they get caught up in like how important it is to win. But it's not. You know, you're there to have fun and develop these kids and make sure they're having a good time playing the sport. You know,
For sure.
I think some of that gets lost.
Yeah. Does it happen in professional sports where a player either mid-season or in the off-season decides that they want to take a break and they either fake an injury or, I mean, does that exist?
Well, I think the biggest example in soccer is Landon Donovan, right? I mean, the biggest U.S. player ever. And he just decided, I'm burnt out. And I think it was like 2015, maybe. He was like, I'm just going to step away for a bit. And he took an entire year off and decided, oh yeah, I actually do love the game, and came back and killed it for a couple more years. And so it happens. You have to be kind of at the top of, in professional sports, I think you probably have to be at the top of your game to be able to do that, because like you said, the margins are so slim. It's the percentage of a percentage of a percentage. But yeah, I think there's guys that have taken breaks per se, but not enough to warrant, like, I don't know, in soccer, you don't make enough money to like take a break and then come back and just say, okay, whatever happens, happens. So I don't know if baseball is the same, or once you get paid, it's got to be tough to take a break.
Yeah, I think like winning is too important at that level. You know, like you're fighting for a World Series, you can't have like a really good player taking a 2-week break. You know, it just doesn't really work that way. You know, it's interesting, when I came back after my Tommy John surgery, I had like, I don't know, 2.5 years off of playing. And then I came back, and around like my 100 inning mark, like I was dead, dude. Like I had nothing left in the tank. I remember like pitching those last few games, like just like mentally, physically, I was like totally burnt out, like just done. And remember I was pitching against the Dodgers. I was in Boston, and I was pushing so hard that I wanted to cry. Like I was like pushing myself to the max, trying to like get through this game. I remember being done with the game. I went up to the gym and I just like starfished on the floor. Like I was just like totally done. And they were trying to tell me like, oh, you gotta keep on going, keep on pushing. We need you to pitch this next game. You know, we were kind of on the outside shot of the wild card, and I tried to pitch one more game, and I gave up like 6 runs in the first inning, and I went up to them. I was like, dude, I'm sorry. Like I'm dead. Like I've got nothing left in the tank. And my knee had been bothering me for like the entire season, but it just sort of like started manifesting more and more. So that was really bothering me to the point where like then I couldn't even throw a bullpen because my knee, I don't know if it was like my knee manifested because I was like so burnt out and dead, like it plays in more. Like I was able to push through the knee because I still had some energy left. And then I was just like mentally, physically dead, and my knee got worse. But yeah, I had to stop after that last game. So I was like, dude, I got nothing.
But then you see a difference in the organization where, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and if I'm speaking for you, I'll stop. But the Dodgers managed your load.
They
like
did, yeah. The Dodgers told me when I first got there, they're like, look, like we're gonna do a 6-man rotation. You know, we're gonna try to have you pitch like every 6 days, maybe even every 7 days. Like we're gonna go on 5 days, maybe like 2 or 3 times this year. Like we're really gonna try not to do that. And the first time I did pitch on 5 days, they only had me pitch like 3 innings. So they did a really good job. I think they also had the depth, you know, to be able to do that because they're such a good team. And then when I went to Boston, like it was a bit more of like, oh, we're pushing, and like I was pitching pretty well at that point, especially the year before. I was pitching well, and they like needed me to be out there pitching. But I think that if it had been a bit more kind of balanced, and they're like, hey, if we just give this guy like, you know, maybe skips a start or something like that, instead of just like kind of pedal to the metal, burning me out, I may have lasted like the entire season. So I think there's kind of like that is it worth it to give a break now to be able to keep someone going for longer, or do you just like wear them down until like they're completely done? So I think it's finding that, again, that word balance with players and their bodies, and I mean mentally too. I mean, I was mentally just like completely out of it.
I think we can take the word balance and kind of kick it out of there, because when you're at that level, balance isn't really a thing. It's just it's managing the amount. But you look at the kind of the quality of the organization, and one has a long-term view and one has a short-term view, right? Sure. And I think people get stuck in the short-term view and the now stuff, and then you see that at younger and younger ages, because, oh, I need to play in this tournament because I'm injured, but I need to whatever. It's such a short-term view of what's going on there, and it's driven by the current systems and how you get into college and how you get to the next thing, and social media and all the big pile of shit that we have going on for the youth market now. And it's like, no, have a big picture view of this thing. We got to look at it bigger.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I mean, I don't know of any players to just be like, all right, yeah, I'm going on like a week-long vacation, get my mind right, and we'll see it, we'll see it back.
Unless it's a substance abuse issue.
Right, or if they're,
then they go to Malibu.
Family matter, yeah, like,
yeah.
Like, and I think to your point, Brad, like Donovan being on the top of his game, the top of soccer, being one of the best players in the league, I feel like there's a little bit more leeway for him to be like, okay, yeah, like, people aren't going to really bat an eye. But if, a mid-tier guy is going to do that, they'll be like, well, like, your spot might not be here when you come back, but we'll see, So it's
Landon kind of got killed for it, though, at least publicly.
Did he?
Like, for sure, yeah.
Oh, wow, yeah. But then see, like, the general public don't understand it, but if you're in the game or in the know, you're like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. That'd be nice.
Sounds kind of nice, yeah.
Dude's been a professional since 17 years old, and 15 years in, he's like, yeah, I'm going to take a year off, and people are like, what do you mean you're going to take a year off? And it's like, well, I'm mentally not able to do this how I want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. But it goes like the substance thing, like you would imagine, like the guys that have to take substance abuse. I mean, it happens in soccer also, every sport. Maybe they should have taken a break. Right. Early on, and they just didn't get ahead of it in time and said, well, if I could take like 3 weeks off, go get my mind right, then I'm not led to the point where I publicly have to face this like shame and have to take a break. Because you're already going to take a break with substance abuse issues anyways. Right. So something has led to somewhere along the line, guys needing to take a break.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea that I don't think I've ever heard discussed anywhere. This idea that for some players, and it probably has to be reserved for the really talented guys who have, either a massive upside or something like that, or you're in the top, 10% of players in the league. If you're also redlining, and you have been for 4 years, and you're on Adderall 20 hours a day, and you got a little bit of a bug shug habit, on the weekends, and you got 4 girlfriends in every market, like, okay, maybe there is room in professional sports for like a mental health week or 2. I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting idea to me.
Yeah.
Bug shug? Bug shug.
Yeah, I've never heard that one, dude. That's a new one for me.
Because it doesn't show up on drug tests. Not like I know, but I'm just saying,
Oh yeah, you're the biohacker over there.
Yeah. Just it's not going to show up on. You're not going to get popped for bug shug.
I mean, I think we all have a good sense. Like, how many times have you been in a locker room and looked at a guy and internally thought, like, dude, you just need to like go away. Right? Yep. They become an issue in the locker room, and you wish that they could just take a break, or you could go to management and be like, dude, this guy needs just give him 2 weeks or 7 days to like decompress and get his mind right. And I think we'll have better results. But like you said, at the professional level, it's driven by that. But I've had to have that conversation with high school parents. Like, I can see that the players redlining because they're doing lacrosse and soccer competitively. They're missing a game because they have to travel to California to do lacrosse, and they come back and it's like their touch is gone. And they're just not in it. So I have to go to the parents and be like, hey, this weekend, just let them go to the movies. I've said this before, but like, let them go to the movies, be a kid, and just live their life, right? because they are hyper focused with that drive to get that scholarship, which is so important to them. And whether that's passed on from the parents or, you know, you wouldn't believe how many emails I get about, oh, she just doesn't have the drive. How do I get her to have that commitment and then the nutrition and the extra training? And I have to tell them, we have to work backwards. Like, we have to have the conversation of, first of all, do you even like it?
Yeah.
And then we go to, okay, if you actually are really enjoying it, it makes you happy, then we can knock off the other things. But just doing the extra training, the nutrition, the mental performance isn't going to lead to them liking the sport. It has to be completely flipped upside down and start with, do I love it? Do I love doing this? And then we can like start to hammer those things down. That's been a difficult one to kind of watch these kids. I feel bad for them.
It's tough because there's only a certain amount they can allocate to everything that they got going on too, right? So if they truly do answer your question first and they do want that, then we got to look at the whole picture and go, well, what do we need to reduce? What do we need to replace? What do we need to remodel so you can give more energy to this thing if it's truly in their passion? But I think a lot of times you're getting a secondhand motivation driven from a parent. I mean, I don't think it's intrinsic, especially at some of the ages that we're talking about. It's a tricky one because you're really everything we're circling around in this part is an adult problem, not a kid problem.
Yeah. If the kid answers yes, 16 or 17, maybe college bound, and they're like, yeah, I really do love it. It's fun. I prefer it. I want to be able to, maybe I'm a 2-sport or 3-sport varsity athlete. I've got all the tools. Then what the hard part is, right, Ben? And I know you've been thinking a lot about this for years, which is, okay, well then what is the process of taking a really big look at your workload, at your training schedule, at your nutrition, your rest, your entertainment, and then try to put together some sort of strategy for you to be able to do what you love to do, to have time in the day and give yourself recovery. And from my perspective too, working in the biohacking space and working with high performers in commerce, tech CEOs and so forth, like they're redlining all the time too. So when you introduce biohacking techniques, red light therapy, neurofeedback, sleep optimization hacks, it's like, well, maybe that's what's missing is some tools and some tricks to be able to help you recover more effectively, right? How can you regulate your breathing better, or increase your heart rate variability? Because you do want it, you do have it, you're talented for it, you've got this excellent potential, but maybe some of your sort of lifestyle habits are undermining the work that you're doing, and nobody talks about it, right? This is called Mendy. This is a neurofeedback device that you just play on your phone that brings blood to your prefrontal cortex. It actually like turns on your critical thinking. It's 10 minutes a day. My kids do it, and not because I think that they're going to be professional athletes, but because it helps them keep their shit together. It helps them stay calm and it helps them focus. And so my question is, if the answer is yes, then where does a family start or a coach start in this process of saying, okay, how can we recalibrate this? I'm asking you, Ben, specifically, and then I want everybody to kind of give thoughts.
I think it's a requirement now. I mean, you're talking about working with adults who are in the commerce and like really high performers in that space, and that's their job, and they're making money doing it for kids. I mean, if we take changing the environment and the system and adjusting that off the table, like 12-year-olds and 11-year-olds training 4 nights a week and 2 games on the weekend. If we can't change that, then we have to start looking at some of the stuff. For me, I don't think you even specialize until 16, 15, or at least post-puberty until you're on the back end of it. I think it's doing a disservice to the kids. But if it's going to continue on this path, and I don't see what's going to change unless socially we change some dynamics or we reduce the business side of everything, we have to look at the whole picture now. And the arguments I'm making are holistic, do a whole bunch of different things, learn new skills and things that you're talking about, Sean, that actually transcend the sport field and actually just make you healthier in life. Those are the ticket, right? It's because ultimately the sport's just the medium that we're delivering the information through, right? It's about being a healthy human being, right? Because if you're breaking down an athlete, you're breaking down a human. So all these tactics you're talking about apply on more education, to an adult, to a kid on how to be a healthier person on and off the field. And then you're going to see the work show up, right? Is that a justifiable answer? Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Anybody else have thoughts on that?
I think it's like, what's the end goal? Is the end goal like, is it wealth? Is it fulfillment? Is it, what are you going for? And I think it's more valuable to be sort of like trying to track down like fulfillment and joy. I think like if that's the goal, then you got to look at the person as a whole. Whereas if I could see you kind of like pushing beyond, if it's like, oh, I got to make like as much money as possible, or something like that, because that can be used as a measuring stick of how successful you've been, But if you're looking at yourself as a person and like you're going for fulfillment and joy, then you got to kind of include the part of you that's not your sport. That was hard for me, and I think it might be hard for other athletes too. People don't really talk about it that much, but like the chasing of contracts and the chasing of money and all that kind of stuff is hard. It was difficult for me to deal with, and I would imagine that it's difficult for others as well. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, James, for sure. I think too what Brad says, like starting, working backwards, and it's understanding like what really do they want? What is the goal here? What is the end goal? And then it's changing the perspective on it. Are there kids getting scholarships that, practice once a week and play one game a week? Yeah. And are there kids getting scholarships that do it every single night? Yeah. But at the end of the day, who is happier and who's got the longevity and like, the right trajectory? And then that just leads us right back to the same question is what are they trying to get? What do they want? What's the end goal? Is it to get a college scholarship? Is it to go play professional? Is it to play 10 years in professional? Or is it just to like play on the high school team, have a good time with your friends, get a cool letter for your letterman's jacket, whatever the case is. It's just understanding that. And then I think the miscommunication is, like you guys said, with the parents and with the coaches. Because if all three people have different goals, then you're going to have this this knot of and resistance of the kid, resistance of the coach and the parents, and everyone's pushing each other in the wrong directions. And then it just becomes a mess. And then that's when you get people quitting and, so I think that's kind of, if you can kind of get everyone in the same path and have the same end goal, if you will. I know we keep saying that, but, and it stems from the individual, the player. I think that's a big component too.
What motivated you?
Totally.
What was your thing, Patrick? Did you want to play pro ball? Did you want to be just big stud high school guy? Like, did you just love to compete? What was the thing that really drove you? Money?
I think I always internally knew I wanted to be a professional baseball player. Every time someone asked, what do you want to do when you grow up? That's what I said. And I also wanted to be a doctor. My mom worked in the hospital for 40 years. So I was just always hearing, that kind of thing. And I was always interested in it. And so, I remember my freshman football team, our coach asked me all right, what do people want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, I want to be a cardiologist. And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm a freshman in high school. And they're like, what did you say? I just wanted to be a doctor. That was my thing. I went to college and I was a bio major. I stopped after 2 weeks. It was super hard. Couldn't manage baseball in that. What we're talking about, right? But yeah, I think I had other goals to accomplish that I wanted to do along with baseball. I knew baseball was my thing. But at the same time, I wasn't going to every single showcase. I wasn't, I wasn't a cage rat. I put in my work, right? We practice, we do our thing. But there was other things that I enjoyed, which I think really helped.
What's interesting on that is I used to dream of being a pro baseball player. And then when I was in my driveway shooting hoops, I wanted to be in the NBA. And then when I was throwing the football around, I dreamed about being, in the NFL or whatever else. The one thing I didn't even imagine was being a pro soccer player. That was not even maybe it's my age and the era I grew up in. It wasn't a reality. I don't feel like it was just something I just kept riding the wave. And every time I upped a level, I would adapt to that level and go, oh, new opportunities are showing. And it wasn't a thing I obsessed about as a young person. I mean, it's just a really interesting thought.
No, I resonate with that for sure. Because like you said, I wasn't like a super fan. I enjoyed the teams I watched and the guys I like. I had favorite players, but like there was other things that I was doing and enjoyed. And also too, I think you made me think of something. Like when I was playing and practicing, I wasn't looking ahead to a year down the road, or you know what I'm saying? Like I wasn't in the cage in high school, like, oh, okay, I got to do this because college scouts are going to be there. And it's like, no, like we had practice, whatever the time was, like, all right, I'm there for practice. That's what we're doing. When I'm playing, we're playing in San Diego. I got tournaments in San Diego. That's cool. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to play this one. So that way, like, I know scouts are coming and then maybe like in a year I can go to this show. It was like none of that, And so I think to your point, Ben, of like, just when whatever you were doing, that's what you wanted to do, like shooting hoops. Okay. Like I'm going to be a professional basketball player, but it wasn't like, you know what I'm trying to say is like, you're
in the moment, dude. You're in the moment.
Yeah. And that's one of the big messages from an Athlete Complete perspective is that if you can just keep your attention on one thing and do that one thing while you're there, and then when you're not doing that thing, you switch off from it, that you still are growing in that thing and you have energy for it when you come back to it. I think that's an incredible message, right? Because otherwise your brain is just so focused on so many things at once, and it just creates stress because you're worried about tomorrow and you're worried about down the road. Just be there for that one thing.
Yeah. Baseball can do that too, and James can probably attest to it. But I mean, there's times where you're laying in bed and I'm like, for me, thinking about my swing and all this jazz and like, okay, like I got to do this and that. And you're not present with your family or your wife and they can sense it, but you're like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. It's like, no, I've been taking like a million swings in my head. And then I get to the field and I'm already burnt out mentally because it's like, what was I even trying to think about and do? And it's like, holy cow. And you just kind of spiral down, and that's when you're not in a good headspace. But when you're succeeding and doing well, not that is a factor, but it's like you notice that you're doing well and being successful because you're able to turn that off. When you go home, it's like, okay, baseball was at the field. Now I'm home doing whatever. And then when you get to the field again, you pick it right back up. And sure, like, is there a routine that you like start thinking ahead of time? You're like, okay, I'm going to do this and that. Yeah. But you're not like practicing in your head the whole entire time you're away from whatever you're doing. I just feel like
there's research on this too that showed that your subconscious still works on this stuff when your attention goes away from it. So that's one thing I educate kids and parents too is you've done your skill work, trust that the skill acquisition phase is going to keep happening even though you're doing other stuff. So you don't need to worry about watching the video of it on repeat over and over again. And in fact, if you are going to watch video, make sure you're watching video of things that you're doing well, not your mistakes. Because like a lot of people hyper focus on the mistakes. No, catch yourself doing the things well, and that's what you want to replicate, right? So watch your positives more than your negatives. But you're always working on it. You don't have to give it the full deliberate attention. You just have to have trust that your subconscious working on it, and when you're sleeping, it's really working on it. And the next day, then you go apply what your stuff did for you.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. When I was where was I? I was at the Yankees. And up until that point, so I was like, 5 years in the league at that point. On the days that I pitched, like it was like no one could bother me. I was like, the game was at 7:00, but like I woke up and like I had my little routine, like don't bother me, stay away from me kind of thing. But then I got to the Yankees and I was like, I had a conversation with Andy Pettit, and he was just saying like, dude, there's enough time. When you get to the field, that's when you can start thinking about the game. Like until you get to the field, it's like live your life. Like go for a walk or whatever. Maybe don't like go crazy, go work out or something like that. But like live your life, go get breakfast with your family if they're in town, like hang out with people, whatever. And then once you get to the ballpark, you get to the ballpark pretty early. You get there like 3 or 4 hours before the game. Like that's plenty of time to lock in and like get your mindset going and stuff like that. And that really helped me a lot, especially once I like started having kids and stuff, like being able to be present and just be a regular dude in the morning, even on the days that I pitched. And then once I go to the ballpark, that's when I'm James, the baseball player. I started working on that identity work because I really struggled with that. Like I was James, the baseball player. Like that was it. That was my full identity. So I started trying to separate around that time. And it really helped me, I think, like going forward after that.
And how important are those veterans in the locker rooms to like guide you in that sense? It kind of, I was thinking as Patrick was talking, it seems like one thing he's echoed is how important his parents were and how kind of they just said they had great recognition of where he was at mentally as like an 11, 12-year-old to say, hey, let's take a break. And I think that is probably the biggest piece in leading to your success. Because, I mean, how many times have we seen it? The overbearing parent that's on the sideline screaming. You get in the car, you're talking about the game. You get home, they're watching video, they're talking about the game. That's when they get overloaded too. And how important it is to have like that, you know, mature veteran, if you will, presence. I don't know. Did your parents play sports? How do you think that they were able to kind of recognize that when a lot of parents aren't able to? They're living vicariously through their kids.
Yeah, good point. I think to my parents' question, part of it, I would say they were obviously super excited, you know, with me playing baseball and all that came with it, and they loved every aspect of it. And it's not like they pushed me to practice necessarily or, you know, perform. It was like the big thing that my mom and my dad always echoed to me was like, just protect yourself. Like, you have a gift, you have a tool, you can play baseball, like you're really good at it. Just be mindful when you're doing other things that like you could get hurt and like ruin your chances. But it wasn't like, hey, we got to go to the cage every single night and we got to do this. Like, you're going to play catch with me in the yard. It was like, just like protect yourself in that sense. And so I think that also helped too, because it was like, okay, like made me realize, okay, I have a gift. This is really cool. I have this certain skill, but it wasn't like pushing that skill, like always like constantly refinement. It was like, just protect it. And when you're doing other things.
That's really cool.
And it's kind of interesting. Yeah. Like, I don't know, but my mom would always say, like, if we're playing in the pool, she's like, watch your right arm, you know, like, stuff like that. When I think now back, it's like, it's kind of funny, but I'm like, yeah, mom, I got it. Like, you know, or my dad. And it's like, they were protecting my, you know, trajectory, if you will, but not like pushing me. It's kind of hard to describe if you
not overbearing.
Yeah.
Allowed you to do what you wanted to do, but they obviously, with their experience, knew that they saw something special too. So they let you be a kid, but also, okay, they saw something, you obviously felt something.
Yeah.
Seems like it was a good balance.
Yeah, for sure. And it's not like they were never like, hey, we signed you up for this like hitting lesson and this guy and that. It was like, no, it just like played, you know, my dad was the coach in Pony and, you know, with some of our best friends, and we had a great time. We played and that was it. Practice once a week, play on the weekends, you know, and then I got into travel ball. And, but then again, on my travel team, the San Diego Stars, if we didn't play a tournament, we practiced on Sunday morning. Like, that was it. And, you know, we had, you know, kids from coming all over like San Diego and Orange County, but still it was like once a week and then we played. It's cool.
And that's interesting too. I mean, it sounds like your parents
go ahead.
It sounds like your parents nurtured that the right way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The wag's getting us right now.
Get it together, you guys. Get it to fucking
hey, Trick, you speak.
Thank you. Drago? How do you, Drago?
Drago.
No, but to Brad's question about the veterans too, I think, you know, James had a really good, you know, specific example and answer to that. But same thing with me. Like there was guys that I would watch or try to talk to. And, you know, when I was super young, you know, A-ball, AA. And one that stands out was Alan Craig said, like, you got to live your life similar to what, you know, James was saying about Andy Pettitte. And I was like, yeah, but like, you know, you're climbing up the ladder and you're like, no, like I got to do like baseball only. I got to like go home right after the game. I got to sleep in. I got to do these things. And then kind of to my point earlier, it was like, you just start going down like a mental spiral and you're constantly mentally playing and practicing the game. You're like, dude, I am so like just exhausted mentally. And so when I remember hearing that, I was like, okay, so like you can go out with your friends after the game. You don't have to drink 12 beers. Like you can have a beer and be totally fine. Or in the morning, you can go up and have breakfast or, you know, go get coffee or something. Like you can do these things and still be really successful. And that's always stuck with me. And so I think, you know, getting to the big leagues and getting in these big cities and you're like, holy cow, like you're in New York. And I'm like, whoa, this is kind of intimidating. But I'm like, shoot, I'm going to walk around. Like, I'm going to go get on one of these bikes and ride
silent or what? Is this
check
still
out a cool
recording?
village or something. It's like,
I feel like
you can do that. And then like James said, you get to the field early enough. All right, I can lock in, I can rep. I can get my swings in, I can get my, reps in, whatever it is. So the veterans definitely played a huge role in that. And it's so nice to have veterans that are open and willing to pass those things down.
I think there's one thing that we need to touch on. Patrick's alluded to a couple times, that playing with his friends. You can achieve success by being motivated by playing with your friends, and like you're proving it because you enjoyed it so much, right? You can. It's the danger of all these conversations is lumping everybody into the same category. I mean, some people, depending on what their values are and how they grew up, they get stimulated by wanting to achieve success. They get stimulated by wanting to break out of status quo and do things differently. You get stimulated by being community-based and want to play with your buddies. And you can achieve success in all those arenas, right? So we need to understand that everyone's an individual. I grew up from a different background. And as coaches, or a coach, or if a coach is listening to this, you can understand that kids get motivated in different ways. And if it's your way or the highway and you don't have any awareness of that, or you might be creating an environment that's frictionless to how they get motivated. So if you don't understand that about your players, you might write somebody off that actually has an opportunity to do really well just because you don't understand who the hell they are.
That's a really good point.
You just said frictionist. We're going to flag that.
Is that a real word?
I don't think so.
Well, I write it down and I've corrected my computer enough where it doesn't auto-correct it. So
got to watch the frictionistness.
I'm an innovator. I created a new word.
I'm reminded of some of the stories of different players that came up in different ways, right? You think about the Brazilian soccer players that came up, playing in the favelas and, really poor. They're just killers, right? But they played and they played and they played and they had fun and they wanted to, find their way out of their unfortunate childhood situation. I think of the same thing for some of the inner city kids that in their family, and they just want to get a way out. And then I think about Hugo Lloris, who is the goalkeeper for LAFC, who came from Monaco. Dad is a multi-millionaire F1 franchise owner, upper crust of French society, who also found his way to be, one of the top goalkeepers in the world for a long, long time. The hard part that I see sort of from an outsider's perspective is if there are so many different pathways to get to that next level, how in the hell can you create systems around nurturing these different pathways, these different trajectories of development? And what are the institutions and sports teams and leagues that actually, how can you serve all of these different players and all of these different backgrounds to continue to develop athletes? I don't see a certainly not a simple resolution to that to help people in their different pathways, but I don't see it at all. It sounds like a crapshoot. I'm looking at four professional athletes in front of me with very different styles and pathways to get to their sport, and I just don't understand how that works.
Well, I think that's part of the conversation that we're having is what are the commonalities that led us to where we are now. And I think one thing that was echoed for all of us was a support system around us that just allowed us to kind of do our thing. I think all four of us had that, and James has touched on it in the past too with his parents and Drago as well. And there's one parent that I constantly remember from my youth team. This kid, I don't remember the kid's name, who they were, but it was Cisco. It was a 1985 team, same year. And this mom would just scream, and they were a good team. He was a good player, but the mom would just scream on the sidelines the entire game. And he had more talent than I did, no doubt, but just fizzled out. And I don't think that his support system around him gave him that opportunity to get out of that situation. And I don't know why this one parent, when I think of my youth, that's the only thing I think about in youth soccer, really. I don't remember my goals, but I can vividly remember this lady screaming on the sidelines. And I was just thinking to myself, how fortunate I am to get in a car. My parents could talk about effort, but they wouldn't talk about the soccer game. Not technically what I did wrong. Why didn't you score that goal? Nothing. It was just, they understood it was my outlet and I enjoyed it. And they tried to help me flourish in any way that I could. And I think all of us in this room have that same sentiment and echo, and you're doing it with your kids, John. And Yeah, I think that is probably the most common denominator between all of us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Sean, to go back to yours, it's I think it starts with leadership, whether that's with a club or whatever, creating a performance pathway that has a culture that connects people, because you have to learn about people. So without that connection, there's no way to enhance. So a lot of times I think you have organizations that need people to fit to them versus creating a performance environment that knows how to enhance the people around them. So that starts with leadership, driving the energy into that culture that deals with the human being first and enhancing that person.
Yeah.
It's an ecosystem that usually is not ingrained in a efficient and effective manner from what I've seen.
Just getting everybody on the same page.
Alignment, because if you have leaderships that create the right performance environment, that's going to drive the behaviors you want to see to get the outcomes that you want. So if the behaviors aren't clearly defined and they're not, if the players don't know how they're supposed to behave and the parents don't know what behaviors they're supposed to exhibit, and then the coaches aren't doing their behaviors correctly, it's all over the place. So aligning the behavior that you want for the outcome starts with the culture. And if it's not clearly defined from the club, or if it's just written on the wall and they're not actually executing it, that's a problem. So you got to look at the entire environment there.
So my soccer club was Tempe Soccer Club, and the guy who led it was Jeffrey Wilson, and he worked at ASU at the time. And our slogan was where education meets soccer. So we had to take mandatory SAT classes on campus with an SAT. He just had this vision, and now his current title is at ASU, and he's the Associate Dean of Research and Inclusive Excellence and professor at ASU. And so I got really lucky with someone like that to now is obviously just a brilliant mind who led our club and then went on to bigger and better things that's sports right there, is excellence and inclusivity. We want to build a culture within a club. And yeah, to your point, Ben, that is so vitally important. It comes from, whether it's the Sounders or, the Cubs or, when James was playing, whichever team, you can feel it when you step into that locker room, right? The conversations you have with the president, GM, whatever it is, they're all on the same page and echoing the same message, that is vital.
And think about the trickle down from that too. You have those environments that are correct, the behaviors that are correct, and then you have all of a sudden the psychological safety goes up for the individuals that are working there. Now your mental health is improved, and then now maybe our physical health can be improved, because we know that overtraining these kids and breaking them isn't the best way for the performance and outcomes we want. And it just all starts to line up more effectively. So it's really a no-brainer from an organizational psychology standpoint to get this stuff ironed out, right?
Do you think it's more caring about the people more than the outcome?
Yeah, because the people are driving the results.
Right. Yeah, that's what I mean.
So you have to.
Yeah, it's more people focused than outcome focused, even though on these teams, the focus is the outcome, but if you want the outcome, you need to focus on the people. So it's kind of counterintuitive. If you focus on the people, growing the people, making the people better, it's going to lead you to the outcome that you want. But if you're out there just always focused on the outcome, you're not giving the people the focus and maybe the what they need to be able to give you the outcome that you want.
Right.
Yeah, and the lazy man's version of achieving results is to drive fear into people and make them perform out of fear. That's just a short-term thing that's not going to work. So that's why people get chewed up and spit out and they're done, right? It's not the most effective way to do it. And this has nothing to do with being soft with people, because you need people to be accountable and know how to work really hard and achieve the results that we need. But there's a different way to do it. And it starts with the environment that you're setting for these people to perform. So, any kid that go to the Sounders Academy, the first thing they need to navigate is understanding what that thing on their chest is, the Sounders badge, and the environment they're now in. And I doubt they do.
Good point.
Patrick, how do you keep your shit together these days? We're talking about, managing workloads, it's now off season, what sort of things do you enjoy doing outside of baseball that help you stay in love with baseball?
I got 3 kids, so that's 3 big reasons. Yeah. And, I think it's enjoying the downtime, enjoying the break, getting away from it. Do I watch all the playoff games? Yeah, I do, because I like to watch it. But I think being away is a huge part of it. It's like you start to miss it. You start to miss the locker room and the guys in the field. But yeah, I would say my family, just spending time with them, being present, being like a normal dad, not in and out every few days, like the season does to us, but taking my kids to school, it's cool, like just to kind of get back into, I guess, like a normal routine. Yeah. So, I mean, my answer is the kids for sure, because they're pulling me in every direction, which is fun. I enjoy it.
It's not cigars or golf or Fortnite. I mean, is that?
I mean, I'm not much of a video game player, although I'm pretty good at Mario Kart. We play that on the team, which is really fun. I like golf. I'm okay. I'm not great. So I do like to get golf. It is tough to golf when it's constantly raining up here in Washington. But I'm big into wine too. I'm a certified enologist, which is just a technical term for a winemaker.
Sweet, you're a vintner.
Yeah, exactly. I did my certificate course at Washington State. Started that in COVID. It was an 18-month program, so finished up about a year and a half ago. It's pretty cool. It's super interesting. Taking classes and learning the back end behind it.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. Haven't made much of my own stuff yet. I've just been helping a lot. So there's not like a dedicated barrel or anything that with my name on it just yet, but in due time.
You should connect with Kellen Rowe. He just retired. He played like 15 years in the league. He started this wine club called Vino FC. He's like on the same level as you, and he's got like over 100 members. Just gives out you sign up, you get 2 bottles of wine every month, and then some meetups throughout the city every month. But he'd be an awesome player to connect. He just did his own wine. And he'd be a great resource as well if that's something you want to like continue to do afterwards, or maybe there's like a cool partnership while you're still playing. And he's a really cool, awesome dude, Seattle guy, and like wine absolute nut.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. Helen Rowe, like ROE.
Yeah, I'll send you his info. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Wow, that's super helpful.
I like that. I like the fact that, I don't know. I feel like those people are interesting who are really high level at whatever it is that they do, but they also have other things that they dork out about. Whether it's one. There's. I just think it's cool again because you're going to be done at some point. What are you going to spend your time doing? Where's your attention going to go? What are you going to focus on? And talk about complexity. Wine is about as complex as it gets. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so it keeps it fun, and like I did a wine event this last weekend in Walla Walla, which was really cool just to be a part of and see what it's like. So just constantly learning and meeting people, getting connected with individuals and seeing how great the community really is and how helpful it is, and it's really cool.
Tell us about your work with St. Jude.
St. Jude, yeah. So I played in Memphis for 3 years, and that's where their big hospital is. And one day I walked in the clubhouse on the whiteboard, it said like hospital visit tomorrow, 9 a.m. Write your name down if you want to go. I was like, all right, sure. Yeah, I'll go. Went to St. Jude. That place is amazing. Holy cow, learning all the ins and outs of it. Families and kids don't pay a dime. They put you up. It's really remarkable. They also share all their research. So whatever comes out, like they share it with everybody. They're not trying to hide it. They're not trying to, make money off it or whatever. They're sharing, which is super cool. So the next year, 2017, that was in 2016, 2017, and 2018 was able to meet a patient. His name was Paxton. One of the front office people for the Redbirds, they came down like, hey, we have this hospital patient coming down. Would you like to, basically be a chaperone and show him around and, be his friend? I was like, yeah, of course. So I met him. Awesome dude. He was like 8 at the time. Took him in the clubhouse. You can just see his like smile just grow. It was awesome. Had lunch with us in the clubhouse and got on the field for batting practice, and just the constant smile, like I always remember for sure. Just was amazing. It's definitely priceless. So established a relationship. I said, hey, anytime you want to come out, like you come out, you hear like, his mom got my number, and because I knew that he was getting treatment there at St. Jude for a type of brain cancer. So I was like, dude, anytime you want to come out, you just let me know. Happy to have you out. Provide like that few hours of joy, after doing the treatment for brain cancer, which I can only imagine has got to be super intimidating, especially for an 8-year-old. It was just so cool to be a part of. And so then the next year, 2019, I played in Nashville. Oh, did I lose you?
Terrible timing.
And
I've got
There we go.
11:45, dudes.
Okay. Yeah, Patrick, you cut out there a little bit, but it'll catch up on the back end. So yeah.
Sweet.
So Brad, you can dip out whenever you need. Just kind of fade off.
Patrick, awesome to meet you. I'll get your
Brad.
info and then connect you with Kellen.
Okay, great. I really
All right,
appreciate
guys.
that. Thank you.
All right, boys.
Good. Later.
So what's the status of your involvement with St. Jude nowadays?
Yeah, so I'm an ambassador. Got connected with a teammate of mine in 2019, and then every year after that, so far, it's just they've been really good about setting me up to do fundraising activities. Sending in game used items, and then this year was able to have some patients out in Chicago, and just creating awareness, t-shirt sales, merch sales, all going to benefit St. Jude. Yeah, and then highlight being the Roberto Clemente Award nominee. And being able to highlight that, I think that was one of the cooler parts of the year so far.
Awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool. And it just kind of happened organically just by meeting that kid. And yeah, just been really, what a cool relationship so far.
Yeah, that's great, dude. That's great.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, they do some really, and like, I think to kind of come full circle with all this, it's always like a good reminder and perspective that, as bad as the days you have in between the white lines when you're making an impact on these kids, or some one person maybe in that ballpark is watching you the whole time. And so how you conduct yourself and how you hold yourself really, really pays dividends for sure. And you have such a big ripple effect that sometimes I think we lose track of. So just being aware of that, being mindful of that, it's been super helpful for me.
Right on.
That's so cool.
Fantastic. I hope a lot of young people listen to this and listen to how you evolved into the man that you are and the things that you continue to do, because I think it's really inspiring and really, really cool. Really cool.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, happy to be on here. This is cool. It's cool to talk about, because like James said, I think earlier, like, doesn't get talked about a whole lot.
Yeah, it's not like, this isn't like regular locker room conversation. Like you don't talk about this stuff with guys. It's more like, I feel like first level, surface level, I guess you could call it, is kind of, at least my experience with like the conversations you have with guys in the locker room. Maybe you're like on the road and you're like chatting with one other guy in a hotel room or something, having a drink, and like maybe you get a little bit deeper, kind of conversation doing that. But that, at least in my experience, didn't happen very often.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I wish it did, because I think it would bring, that like you guys said, that culture. I think it would help that blossom a bit more.
Yeah, I know, Ben, you talk about like building trust, right? Like, how do you build trust with people? By having meaningful conversations with them and like understanding the people you're working with, like that's how you build that. Like you think about like World Series teams, right? And it's always like the teams that win seem to be the teams that are like the closest together. Like you get to know the people you're working with the best. And like that makes you want to work harder. And I think it helps. Something we were kind of like dancing around this whole time was like the whole notion of being in the moment, and not when you're trying to compete, if you're thinking about the past or you're thinking about what might happen, thinking about the future, like you're not going to get your best in the moment. The only way, like if you're in the flow, like you're completely where your feet are in the moment. And I think that when you're playing with your friends or you're playing with people you care about and you're reaching for the same goal, it helps you stay in the moment instead of being worried about the past or the future or what's going to happen to you. I think like it gets you more in tune with like, what is the team trying to accomplish? You kind of, you lose that sense of self, and it's more about like the teams, and that helps keep you in the moment and find that flow state.
100%.
Totally. I think it's so much about connection for the high quality teams. And connection requires repeated experiences that you care deeply about the other person. Like, you don't always have to have deep emotional conversations, but you need to give off the energy that you give a shit about what you're saying. It's cool. I'll pay attention to what you're saying. That's great. And I care if you're doing well, or I care if you're doing unwell. Yeah, I'll be here to talk to you about it, or for whatever I can do, you know, like that's, if you get a group dynamic that can connect like that, yeah, those are the best teams for sure. Yeah. And they're the most enjoyable. They're the ones that have the most purpose and fulfillment behind them, those words that we were talking about earlier. So yeah, I think, you know, you said level 1 surface level stuff. I think a lot of guys are trained to have thick skin and not want to get down to that level because you're an athlete. So you got to be strong and resilient. And I think that's such a mistake because it's such a waste of time. You don't even get to the purpose of what you're trying to do because you're just keeping it out here. You got to get inside if you want to win, man.
Mm-hmm.
Write that down.
Like that one.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just like with any job, you spend more time with those people than you do with your family oftentimes. You know, you see them day in, day out, you know, and podcasts are such an excellent platform to be able to have conversations that you wish that you wanted to have, or an idea that you wanted to share. And we know now that podcasts are the new mainstream media. You know, this is the medium where meaningful, long form, open, honest, vulnerable conversations can happen. And so Patrick, it's so good to have you, man. This was such a cool conversation, and what you brought, and insights that you shared with us were super insightful. So
thank you.
Yeah, we'll let you know in this.
We didn't even talk about the secret hat.
Yeah, we just yeah. What's the story on your hat, Patrick?
My hat? It's just a brand, a Western.
Is that Kyle's brand or not?
No.
It fits.
I know. Yeah. I mean, same spelling, but no, just a buddy works for them, and so give me a few hats. Yeah, so
swag.
Yeah, it's Western wear, Western brand. You know,
there you go. Cool I'm still doing the dad gang on repeat.
Hey, always a dad.
You're 2.5.
I bet that hat smells terrible.
It's fucking ratchy. It's horrible.
Terrible.
Just keeps it all in there.
Okay, we're gonna close this thing out, Patrick. If you would keep your window open for a second until it's 100% downloaded, and then as soon as you go, we're gonna talk about you behind your back. So thanks for coming, man.
I love it.
Yeah, man, it's been awesome.
That was really fun. Appreciate you guys.